Great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leah Smalley. I'm Assistant Director over Financial Aid Services at the Coordinating Board. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is, I think, our fifth year going into providing training through this Webcast platform. So very excited to kick off the year with this particular presentation. Originally, we were just going to give some broad updates, and it has evolved into a lot of information. So I'm excited to share that with you today. Like I mentioned a moment ago before we started recording, we're trying a new feature this time, which is a Q&A feature within Teams. So if you can try your best to use that to ask questions, we're going to try and document those so that we can provide those to people who weren't able to join at a later point. If your Q&A feature is not working, if you can just put them in the chat, we will try and focus on both boxes. Again, this is kind of a test run for this particular tool. So let's get started so we can talk about all of these fun topics. So let's start with the agenda today. I did reorder based on the flyer. It's not in the same order today, and I wanted to tell you why. I'm going to go through the online TASFA first. I have just a few updates, and that way if you joined specifically for TASFA, you don't have to stay through the whole presentation. So that will be a quick overview of what's going on. Then I'll move into the new forward loan program. So if you're here for that, then that'll be second. And then lastly, I'll be going through the financial aid database data submission portal. We'll be doing some high-level training on that new portal. And then I'll just do a couple quick notifications, go through some deadlines, and then again, if we have any leftover questions, I'll circle back to those. Now, the way that we do those questions is as we're going through the material, if you think of something that you want to know, go ahead and put that in the chat. That gives us an opportunity to respond more timely. I have Deshay Reed on. We also have some guests that were instrumental in the development of the forward loan program. I believe we even have some other guests on too. So all of us will be fielding phone calls. We'll be fielding questions as they come through. Deshay is the lead on that. She will then contact others if they need it. So Deshay will be the primary answering all of these questions today. So let's get started. So let's talk about online TASFA. It has been a while, right? It's been quite a few months, and I wanted to give you at least some kind of glimpse of where we're at on this humongous project. So 23-24 TASFA, we did announce last fall that we were going to be pushing out the date to open that application, and that people should be prioritizing the paper version. We have made a huge, just so much progress on this. We're still not ready to launch yet. We have the final touches on that, including making sure security and all of that is in place before we roll it out. So we are scheduled to open in spring. Again, that could always change, but that is our goal. But knowing that it's going to open in spring, we know that there's not going to be that many applications. At this point in the aid cycle, most of the applications should have been submitted via paper, but this will be a good opportunity to see how the application performs, make sure that schools can receive their files, so it'll be kind of testing the waters to see how it goes. Our plan is to formally launch for 24-25. I know many of y'all are wondering about that aid year and FAFSA simplification, so we'll touch on that in just a moment. We are planning to do comprehensive training on the TASFA, including, what our landing page is going to look like, how students are going to go through the process, what they will experience, and then also a step-by-step on how to retrieve files and how to troubleshoot if you can't find something. So we'll be doing that as we get closer to the launch. But right now, I'm just, again, giving a quick update so that you know that, we do intend to launch soon. We just don't have an exact date yet. Now, test files are in the final stages of approval. We've had a lot of schools asking about that. We don't necessarily think a lot of schools are going to be ready to import files for 23-24 just because it's, again, at the end of the aid cycle, but we are planning to do that. That way you at least have a feel of what do the coordinating board's files look like in comparison to, say, the ICER files or anything like that. They are different. So we're working on getting those released. We just want to make sure that they're as close to final as possible so we don't have to continue to send those out. Now we are trying to get out an updated file layout. That's in the final approval stage. So once we have the green light, we'll send that out. It will have an itemized listing of what changed in the file so that you're familiar with it. But one of the things that I'm going to do today is just quickly run through, how our files processed. That way you kind of have a feel of what to look for in the file layout manual, because that's the biggest piece that's changed, is that we clarified how files will be sent, what the naming structure is, what they'll look like, and all of that. So that's what I'm going to do right now. We're going to look at how schools receive files for the TASFA. Get my screen to move. All right, so TASFA files are going to be sent to institutions similar to our other processes through a secure file transfer protocol, SFTP. Ours is called Move It DMZ. Each institution is going to have a dedicated output folder, which you can see on your screen here. And then from there, we break it out by award year. So as we continue to have more and more aid years, then you would have them broken up that way. So you can go back historically. We have not determined our retention on these. So you will want to make sure that you download your files once this goes live. But at least for a certain amount of time, when we have overlapping aid years, you would have them broken up that way. So on the screen, you can see that there's 3 files. And so I wanted to just briefly touch on that because people were asking, how, what are these going to look like? What information are we going to receive? So every single day, we plan to send out a cumulative report. And so every time someone submits a TASFA, it would be added to that list. So that way, for that award year, you would be able to pull it up and see who submitted a TASFA for your institution. It's not going to include students who haven't submitted. That might be in a future rollout, but for the initial launch, it's going to be those that have submitted to your school. So that's nice because if someone says they submitted one, you can go in very quickly and say, well, we haven't received it yet because you're not on my list. In addition, you'll get the student files, which will be comprehensive in the sense that if multiple students submit for that day, all of those records would exist within the one file. If it's only one student, then that would be the only person in that file. So we're going to have 2 TASFA submission files. We'll have one in a fixed length format, which is what vendors typically recommend if you're going to be setting up any kind of automation or import process. But we know that a lot of schools are not going to be able to set something up that quickly because it takes time to get with a vendor. It takes resources, testing, all of those things. So we know it's more of a long-term goal to do that. But since students are going to start using that online TASFA, you do have to be able to process those similar to paper. So what we did is an alternative file in a CSV format, and that one breaks up the file into individual columns per question. And we're even including a column heading on there so that you can easily go in and look up to see what does it align with. All of this is in the file layout. So you'll be able to read through exactly how this will work. But in a nutshell, there will be 3 files. One of them will be daily. The other ones are contingent on when the student submits. You'll receive them as they come through. So that's what the batch process looks like for the TASFA. And again, we'll be doing comprehensive training as we approach the launch. Now, the real question that everyone wants to know, trust me, I feel like almost daily people contact me or asking, what about FAFSA simplification? How is this going to affect our schools? How is that going to affect TASFA? Have y'all been working on it? All these questions. And the answer is yes, we're very aware of this big shift in the aid process. And I was actually on a training yesterday learning about all the different changes, and it is just so much to learn and be prepared for. So we're doing our best here to plan for that. So because the Department of Education has announced that they don't have an exact date yet on when they're going to release the 24-25 FAFSA, they said that they hope to have that announced in the springtime. Our current plan is to prioritize getting the paper copy updated as soon as they release their changes, because that form is much easier to update than an online portal and database. So that's how we plan to handle that, is we're going to immediately start working on the paper form so we can have that ready to go when the FAFSA opens. And then also we will be working on our 24-25 online form. We just can't anticipate what their timeline is. So that will really drive when we can open up officially the online TASFA. So that's our plan for now. We will be sending out a 24-25 file layout, again, once we know what those changes are and we can confirm those. We do plan to keep the TASFA as close to its current version as possible. The department's announced, that they're whittling it down to only a few questions. And when I looked at it, it's really that they've banded and categorized the inputs. They used to be individual questions, but now they're more like sections. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to do as few changes as possible to ensure that we're collecting the data y'all need to do the SAI calculation, because ultimately that's what we need to send to you. If it's other cosmetic stuff or wording differences, we'll evaluate those, but the ones that are the most critical that impact the student's eligibility, those are the ones that we're going to prioritize and get done. The other big question is the state priority deadline of January 15th. That's something that's posted in our Texas Administrative Code. We are looking at what if it's delayed, how will that impact schools, what can be done about that. So we are looking at possibilities if that were to occur. As of right now, it's still January 15th because it is written in our rules and we don't have a lot of flexibility to change that just with a quick decision. It has to be made with some other factors. So we will be getting information out to the school once we know. But again, all of this is kind of a trickle-down effect from what the Department of Education does and their timelines. So please stay tuned for that. All right, so that was my TASFA update. Definitely more coming out soon, more training, more notifications. And if y'all have questions, always reach out. We're happy to answer as best we can. So let's move on to the Forward Loan Program. You may have seen that we sent out notice that we went live with a new program. And so now available to students who qualify is something called the Future Occupations and Reskilling Workforce Advancement to Reach End. That's the longest acronym of all time, or at least the words are. So we always joke, we're like, well, it's a very, very lengthy thing. So on most of our stuff now, you're going to be just simply seeing the words forward because it's just easier to say. Now, the Forward Loan Program is a low interest program designed to cover educational expenses, but the goal is to accelerate the ability of employees throughout the state, to this state of Texas, to fill high demand jobs while providing students with high value credentials. So as you may know, the state released a revised master plan of higher education. It's called the Building a Talent Strong Texas. And this program helps increase the number of students who can obtain a high value credential in a high demand occupation without increasing their student debt above what the relative value of that credential. So part of this program that's very unique is that it has a manageable debt component in it. And I will talk about that a little bit more later. But what this means is it's roughly defined as the ability to repay the total student debt over a 10-year period without requiring more than 10% of an individual's income. So in our initial launch, we have a limited number of eligible credentials, and we will expand on those as time goes by. We may revise those. So this again is just kind of a preliminary look. Now, some of the unique characteristics, again, I talked about high value, high demand credentials. So we're going to look at what are those for this program. It has a low interest rate. It's currently 3.35%, which is lower than most of the loan programs out there, including our college access loan, which at this point in time, most of them that I've seen are above 5%, if not higher. Now, borrowing limits and repayment are tied to the student's calculated manageable debt. You hear that word, you're going to hear it over and over again with this program. So again, I'll kind of tell you how that ties into the process here. Lastly, I wanted to point out that unlike College Access Loan or the Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program, this program is not set up for common line processing at the moment. We are looking at ways to do that in the future, but as of right now, all certifications for this program have to be done online through our HelmNet system. Now, we did release program guidelines, which are similar to our other ones that I'm not going to go through today. Again, this is intended to be more of an overview of the program, and also I want to go through, in the event you get an application, how do you certify it? So that's what we're going to really focus on today. But the program guidelines do have a lot of information included in there that talk about, what are the student's eligibility requirements, credit requirements. It has all the sections that we usually include in our program guidelines. If you didn't see those guidelines, they're posted on our website on the Student Financial Aid Programs page. You can always visit our agency page, and then you have to drill down into that. I'm not going through that today, but if you are not familiar, you can always reach out to us for assistance so we can help you find these resources. So let's look at what is high value, high demand credentials. What are those for this program? So these students that are in these particular fields could qualify for the program. So right now they're limited to energy, nursing, patient care, teaching, technology, transportation, and logistics. Now, on the right-hand side, you'll notice a listing under each of the categories, and those are the individual programs of study that qualify. And so this listing is available on HH Loans. It's also available on the program guidelines. And then it's because the guidelines are posted on our SFAP page, it's also posted there. So there's different places where you'll be able to find this information. The student would also have access to this list when they apply so that they can see if they're eligible, and we'll kind of look at that in a moment. But there's a lot of them on here. I can't remember exactly how many pages. I believe it's like 5 or 6 pages. Once this gets published, the link is also included in here, so you can check it out. All right, so let's talk about the application flow, because another thing that we keep hitting on is something called the manageable debt calculation. And so while this program closely mirrors the College Access Loan program, there are differences on how the loans are going to go through the system. So I wanted to just touch on that before we actually look at the system. So the first thing that the student is going to do if they think they're eligible is they're going to go to our HelmNet site, and they initiate an account where they're going to decide if they're going to apply for the forward loan or if they're going to apply for the college access loan. Now, they complete that online, and they complete their private education loan self-certification form, and then they do their credit check. So we run their requirements. They may or may not need a cosigner. As long as that goes through, then the file is sent over to the institution for certification. So that's what we're going to focus on in just a moment. But after the certification happens at the school, this is where it becomes very unique. The student's record is actually going to come back to the coordinating board for us to do a calculation of the student's manageable debt to determine the final loan amount. So the student's going to start off by asking for an amount. The school is going to decide how much, based on their cost of attendance and other aid that they're eligible for, can they truly get. And then the coordinating board is going to go in after the fact and look at a variety of factors based on the program that they're in, their current debt level, repayment, all of these things. And we decide if the amount that is being certified is eligible. And there will be students that either the loan is reduced or completely canceled if they don't qualify. Now, if they don't qualify, they still have an opportunity to apply through the College Access Loan program. It doesn't mean that they cannot receive a loan at all. It just means that through this particular program, they can't do that. Now, you'll notice below that it goes through all the normal disclosure processes. So I'm not going to go through those one by one, but each one triggers a new piece where the student has to go in and acknowledge, and then ultimately it gets scheduled for disbursement. All of this program guidelines, and it has additional layers of information that are very helpful. So if you haven't seen it, or you're going to be having students who have this loan eligibility, I highly recommend that you download a copy. All right, so let's look, what if you do get a loan? How are you going to know that? How are you going to proceed here? So the good news is that we haven't had a lot of activity yet, which we kind of assumed because of where we are in the academic year, but are seeing some coming through the pipeline. So all of the schools have been set up like they are now. The ones that receive college access loans should be familiar with this. If you don't, then you'll want to make sure that you have access to Move It. Almost every school that participates in state aid programs should know how to access this system. But when you log into the Move It system, you'll go to your output folder, and there's a loans folder there. And in this example, you can see now that there's files available that say forward on them. So this is going to be something that's ready for certification. Now, if you're like me, you're not like really big into data files and trying to interpret, all this strange listing on the screen. So another option is to simply go into HelmNet. So that's where we're going to look right now on how can you look up students who might be sitting there pending. So when you log into the HelmNet system, your screen should look very similar to mine. There's different tools that you can use to identify if somebody's pending certification or even if they've applied. So the first one is your loan reporting tool. This allows you to go in and do a search for students, and then you can download it. So if you're looking to have something that you're actually, tracking or doing, then loan reporting tool is definitely for you. Now, if you just want a quick query just to check it out and you just want to see who's in the pipeline, then there's something called an application query. This one you cannot download. It's just a quick search, and we're going to show you how to do that. The last one is if you know a specific student or they've inquired with you and you just want to look up that one student, a borrower query is probably going to be the most helpful to you. So let's look, I'm not going to go into the loan reporting tool today. I'm just trying to limit the number of options, but let's look at the application query as just a quick overview. So the application query in here, you need to first select the application type. Ooh, did that fast. But you'll notice this little button here. You can add multiple programs, or you can leave it any, and it's going to pull all of them. But let's just say you don't want Cal to come into your query. You just want forward, but you want both the degree and non-degree options. You can click that button and it will allow you to add both of them in there so you can pull all of them at once. In this example, I'm only choosing non-degree. And then at the bottom here, it says application status. I'm going to choose need school certification, and then I'm going to hit search. And then what it does is it's going to pull up all of the students that meet the need certification for the non-degree students. And these are the students that show here. And this allows you to go into each one individually. You can open them up, take a look. Now, again, if you already know the student who is inquiring, so in this case, I'm going to pick on Emma Test. Emma Test calls you and says, hey, I applied for forward loan. Can you please make sure you certify it, or can you see if I'm eligible? You can just go to the borrower query. And in the borrower query, you can either use the social security number feature, which is helpful, or you can actually go down, do the reference number if you have it, or you can just do a name search. Now, when you do the name search, just be mindful that if you have some, lots of students with that particular name, like if you were to just type in the last name Test and you had 25 tests, then it's not going to drill down to that particular student. So my recommendation is always use their social if you have it, or make sure you put multiple pieces in there, like their first and last name. It's more likely going to pull them. So Emma, I pull Emma up and I see that she does have a record there, and you're going to click on her social security number. And then when you pull that up, it's going to launch a screen that's going to show any available loan applications that we have on file at the coordinating board. Now you'll see that there's a little blue plus mark there. That indicates that you can expand it because there's more that you can't see on the screen. Now, depending on your screen resolution, I have a really, really wide screen. And so when I actually click on it, I can see the whole line without that blue little expanding box. So it really just depends, but we wanted to make sure people are clear that that's how you open it up. Now, on this screen, there's at least 3 buttons here that we're going to look at. So the first one is the left-hand button. This is just an overview of, what the student has applied for, how much, and their loan period, all of that information. Now, all students, regardless of where they're at in the process, are going to have a application checklist. And this is one of the most helpful pieces for institutions because you can go in and simply see where did they end in the process and are they ready for certification. So in this example, you can see that their credit is approved. And one of the things that I want to make sure is really clear here is that college access loan requires that the lender approval be complete before certification. Forward loan, the school certifies before the coordinating board approves the application. So it is a little different on this checklist. You're going to notice that the school cert box would get checked prior. And unfortunately, we couldn't reorder the checklist with the time frame that we have because it's very difficult doing individual programs. So it still mirrors the Cal in that capacity. Okay, so the other thing is, if you don't have this edit certification button, then that indicates that the student is not far enough along in the process to be certified. Again, if you do the certification search in either the loan tool or the application query, they wouldn't even come up. So this is going to be people that you identify that are ready for certification. When you click edit certification information, it's going to launch this screen here. So you've got just their, I grade some of it out here, so it looks very limited, but it's going to have your school information at the bottom, the type of loan program that they are applying for, and the common line unique IDs. That's the number that ties it to the coordinating board, so we can look it up. On this screen, you'll see the student's information that they entered when they applied for the loan. You cannot modify this on the institution side, and the student cannot modify this if they've already submitted their application. The only way to get this fixed is for the student to contact our borrower services team, and then depending on what needs to be modified, they may need to submit documentation to get that updated. Some students just cancel and start over again. It really depends, but schools can't update this. You do want to make sure that it matches your record, though, because of things like FADS, reconciliation, and things like that. All of these things are very important, and also because it's tied to credit. So please make sure that you're checking this against whatever records you have. So this is where this program becomes very unique. So once you scroll down the page, you're going to come to the eligibility questions section. And all of the bubbles on the screen are going to be based on how the student responded when they applied. So in this example, it says, are you a Texas resident? The student said yes. That they're meeting SAP. So this indicates that they're eligible for the program, but it's up to the institution to go into your system and confirm that they actually do meet eligibility, because it could be that they're not a Texas resident, or maybe the program that they're in doesn't qualify. So all of this is your way of checking each one off. And if something is different, then you do need to modify those on this screen by updating that. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. So another thing on these screens you'll notice is there's little help icons here, and when you click on them, it expands a little explanation that the student saw when they were completing it, and that you also can see and know how to answer. So each one of these, except for Texas resident, which hopefully all of y'all are familiar with the residency process, or you have someone at your school that you can confirm with, but all the other ones do have these help icons. So once you go through these and you've confirmed that they're all good, then you move on to what's called a program of study. This is where the student indicated which program they belong to. Now, a student may think they qualify, and then you go into your system, you're like, wait a minute, this is not actually what they're in. So this allows you to confirm what they put and then also make that revision and find the program that they're in to see if it qualifies. So you can do that at the top by typing in a random word, like if you wanted to type in the word health, it would potentially pull up all the programs of study related to something that has the word health in it. It will filter the list. So it's I can't show you on this screen, but it's a nice feature to help you drill down into the hundreds and hundreds of programs to find it more easily. Now, if you want to choose the program, it will then filter the list under the subcategory. So there's different ways to use this, but ultimately you want to check with your student records, your registrar, whoever does your enrollment piece to make sure that the zip code or the program is what they put on there. If you discover that the student actually doesn't fall under an eligible category, then they would not be eligible for the forward loan. So there are lots of factors that make a student eligible or ineligible. So let's just say for example purposes that this one's good, the student is nursing, and that zip code is correct. Then you'll move down to your kind of what you may be more familiar with, which is the basic enrollment information. You're going to put the loan period, grad date. That first line there is grayed out because that's what the student requested. And then you're going to enter the student's cost of attendance. You're going to enter their estimated financial aid, and that's going to be any aid that they qualify for, regardless of if they've accepted that. And then the difference is going to be the amount of the loan that you want to certify. So sometimes that's going to be the same amount. Other times maybe the student wants less, but it can never be more than the difference. Then you go to the disbursements, you want to schedule those. Since we're in the spring term, we would assume it's just one disbursement unless you're going to be scheduling something for summer, but you can break this up to 4 disbursements. Lastly, you'll come to the certification page where you have the little bubble that says you're acknowledging all these things. You click certify, and then you'll receive a little notice at the bottom of the page that says the application has been certified. Now, at any point when you're here, oh, here's the example. I'm so sorry. So this is the checklist I talked about. So do you remember I said that it's going to skip a line on the checklist because for this program, the school certifies first, and then the coordinating board goes in after to do the calculation to determine if the amount that's being requested is in fact something that we can approve. If it's not and the student still qualifies, then we would reduce the loan to the eligible amount. And then at some point, some students are not going to qualify, so the entire loan would be canceled. We will be notifying the student of that cancellation so that they know that they can apply for the college access loan or another loan program if they choose. Now, what I was going to say is if at any point when you get into the certification process, you identify that the student's just not eligible. Again, in this example, when the student answered that they were a resident and you change it to, nope, they're not a resident, you see that they actually have a little pop-up that says they must be a Texas resident, and now they don't qualify. So at any point, either here or in the program of study, or if they apply and you're like, wait a minute, they're not even enrolled in school, whatever the case is, you scroll to the bottom of the screen that we just looked at, actually a not eligible to certify button. You don't have to go through any other steps. You just scroll to the bottom, click not eligible to certify, and then you click the submit button and the application is automatically canceled. So it's really easy to clean these up. You don't have to do anything if you know that they're not eligible. So that is the certification process. Now, if it's not eligible, one thing that you can do after to make sure that it got canceled is you can go to the application checklist and you can see the status of the application there. And then you'll notice that everything under it is marked out. It's not going to go through. Everything is canceled. So it is easy to identify that that's been done both on the student side and on the institution side. So that was my quick run through of the certification process. So I do urge you to go and look and move it. You can do the queries. There's only, I think, 2 or 3 schools that we are going to get in contact with that had recent applications so that they can verify if they're eligible or not, and we can either move those forward or go ahead and cancel those. So if you're one of those institutions, we'll be in contact with you. All right, so if you have burning questions about Forward, go ahead and put those in that Q&A box there, and we will be trying to answer those as we go. But I'm going to be moving on to the financial aid database. All right, so I'm sure a lot of y'all are curious, what is this all about? And if you didn't join us last fall, then this will be all new to you. If you did, then this may be a refresher, but at least I have a couple new updates and nuggets to provide. So let's get started with this one. So the financial aid database process is converting from our old system to a brand new consolidated process. And so because of that, we released a manual in January to make sure that the steps are documented on how you're going to process a file in this new portal. And it's called the Data Submission Portal. Now, in the original manual, there were 5 data elements that were added to the layout and also the descriptions. So those are included in there, but those don't start until cycle 2. So institutions are not expected to collect that data or report that data, I should say. Another is that we are going to be sending a modified manual, and that's coming soon. And the reason is because about a week or 2 ago, we sent out an update to the original manual because we moved the open date for cycle 1 to March 9th of 2023. The other thing that was included in that update was that a deadline date for initial file submissions was added to the manual. And the reason this was added was to help move files through more quickly so that we can help institutions that are having difficulty processing. We find that sometimes there's major lags in just submitting a file. And so this will help us make sure that we're all on track with that submission process. So you'll see here that cycle 1 actually doesn't have a date there, but starting in cycle 2, institutions have several weeks from when we open up the portal to actually submit your file. From there, after that, most of them have around a month, if not longer, before you have to validate or certify your file. So this again is something we used to have years ago, but we're adding it back in because we did find that it was helpful as a deadline for institutions to aim for so that they can stay on track with the ultimate deadline. All right, so let's talk about this new flow. So our old flow was broken up into multiple steps, multiple portals, systems, emails. This new one is all in one. So from the accessing the portal to the certification process, it's all in one place. So I wanted to go through this. It's very simplified. You log into the portal, you upload the file, you check its status, you can review your reports. Then if you have what we previously called overrides, you're going to submit justifications for those overrides. Some schools don't have those, but if you do, then that's the step where you would complete that. And then lastly is completing your validation or certification. Now, if you're new to FADS, the reason that there's 2 terms is because cycle 1 and cycle 2 only require something called validation, which is just you confirming that the data makes sense. When you certify, that's like when you are reporting to the state that everything has been checked, everything is reconciled, everything is good. So it's a much more end of year final report. So that's why there's 2 terms. All right, so let's look at this overall process. So it'll go based on the flow chart I just showed you, but access is going to move to CBPass, which the coordinating board uses for multiple applications. So if you're new, then you would have to go and create an account by completing the registration page and make sure that when you're registering that under the affiliation that you type in the name of your school and find that it lines up. That's going to allow us to approve your access. Now, once you've established your account, and this is for new users and for current users, you still have to sign in and request access to the data submission portal. Now, if you're on and you're like, I've done this, it's not there, then you're right. We have not gone live with the portal yet. So you won't see this until we send a notice out saying, hey, we've opened the portal. You can now request access. We will be sending instructions and steps on how to do this, but this is just giving you, again, a visual on what you will expect. So it's coming. So if any of y'all are on your computers right now and anxiously getting in there, you still won't see it yet, but just hang tight and we will be notifying schools once that's open. Now, once everyone is granted access, then on the screen, when you pull it up under your applications list, you'll see the data submission portal. And you click on it and it will pull you into the new portal. And so this is our welcome page, and you'll accept the cookie thing at the top. And then it has a menu across the top, which I'm going to just touch on for a moment. So it's very simplified. You have your reports menu drop down. You have two options there, which is to submit the report and to physically submit it. And then you can go and look at the status. You've also got this certification menu, which actually encompasses the override process, certification process, or validation. You can check on the status of the certification, and then you can also, at a later point, once we're live and you've submitted reports, you can historically go back and look at your certified reports for prior submissions. And then lastly there, those are resources. We have the FAD manual published online. We'll have the new one up once we go live. So let's look at each of the steps here. The first step is upload your file. So you will have to create that. Nothing has really changed on like the actual structure of the file, on how you do that. A lot of institutions have vendors who support them on creating the actual file. Once you have it created using the file layout and all of the data elements, then you go to reports and you click on submit report. A little box pops up where you'll be able to go and browse for your file. And then once you identify where it is, then you'll hit upload. It does take a minute or so to actually upload the file because many of you have very large files, so you'll receive a little notice on this here. So just be patient as that continues to process. Now, one of two things is going to happen once it actually gets uploaded. You're either going to get a successful upload message where it's going to say, thank you, you're all good. Go check the submission status page, or you're going to get something that says, uh-oh, can't process your file, something's wrong here. And you'll receive a notice on the page that tells you why it's not going through. So you would need to correct that and then re-upload the file until you get that successful upload. Now, once you upload it, that doesn't mean that it's processed yet. You do have to go and continually check on the status of your file. So what you'll do is at the top on reports, you'll go to submission status, and then you'll be able to go and enter the filtering pieces here. And because I was doing testing, you definitely want to try and do this. Otherwise, after a while, it's just a big old long list. This helps drill down onto the actual file that you're trying to find. From here, you can see the view report. This is unique. The number that you see on the screen is unique to that file. So it's kind of like a receipt, if you will. On the far right-hand side, you can see that the status is still processing, and processing could take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour or two. It really just depends on the size of the file and how many are going through the system. So again, as we get going into the process, just be patient. It will be faster than the current process, but it's not instantaneous. So once you finally see that your report has been submitted, you can go to the same place. You go into report submission status and you'll see that it's submitted. You'll notice that that report number, it should match. This screenshot does not, but it would have that identical number on it, and then we'll show the reports that are available to you. So the reports are the edit report. It includes the edit summary, errors, and your questionable values. You've got your reconciliation report, which compares how much money was paid out by the coordinating board versus how much you reported in your file, including student count. And you've got your program comparison report, and that helps you identify major shifts in your files from year to year. That last report there, unmatched, which you don't see on the screenshot, is only for cycle 3, and that helps, again, identify discrepancies. between your FADS report and your CBM 001 report. So once you identify the file you want to look at, the report, I should say, then you can actually click on it. And in here, instead of going to the old system where you had to go to different places, in here you can simply launch it on the screen. This is the reconciliation report, and then you can choose to export that into various different formats. So that is the report process. It's a lot easier to download those now. So let's talk about this justification process. So for many years, we've called that the override process, and those were done via email. This has now been moved into the portal. So the interesting part about this now is you're going to be doing your overrides and requesting to certify all in one process. So you don't have to come back later after you've gone back and forth on overrides and do the certification. You're going to do it all at once. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So you'll see here you go to request to certify, and then on the screen you click request certification. Again, a little confusing, but if you look right above that, it says justification. So that's why we're going to look at this real quick. So on the screen, once you pull that up, it's going to pull up all of the data elements that you did not clear in the error resolution process. So this will allow you to type in a override or justification reason as to why you want this one cleared from the coordinating board side. So you'll document that for each of those boxes that are left. If you see one where you're like, oh, wait, that's not an error, then you need to go correct the file and then resubmit it. This should only be for the ones that are the leftovers, and that's only if you have. Many institutions don't have overrides or justifications. So if you're wondering what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. This is only for unique, rare situations. Now, if you need some extra space here, we have other justifications. It's an optional box where you can put additional comments in there. We also have a document upload process where you can browse and then put that into the portal. That way you don't, again, have to email back and forth. So all of this is to consolidate that process to make it more timely. Now, at any time, let's just say you have quite a few or you're about to leave for the day, whatever that case is, you can always save the work that you're doing in your overrides and come back to it later. Maybe you need to research something. So definitely know that you have the ability to come and go before you actually request to certify. Like I mentioned, when all justifications are entered and you're ready to submit your certification, you're going to click on that box and it's going to launch the validation or certification box. Just know that it's not automatically going to go through until the coordinating board approves your justifications, but you don't have to go back into the system once you have resolved any discrepancies. So it's kind of rolled up all into one piece. You go in, you put all your reasons, you go ahead and put in your validation or certification, and then the coordinating board will either approve those and you'll be done, or we'll say, hey, we need more information, and then you provide it. But no matter what, you're doing this step as part of the process. Once you're done, you click on submit, and then you'll receive a confirmation on the page saying that it's been submitted for review, and then you'll be able to go in and look at the status within the menu, and you can see where that's at. And then the coordinating board will reach out to you again if there's any questions on what you've submitted. Now, let's just say you don't have any justifications and you're ready to certify. So once you're error-free, you're going to receive an email from the coordinating board saying you're all good to go. Please log in and do your validation or certification. When you log in, you'll go to request to certify, you fill out the form, and you click submit. Again, you'll receive a confirmation saying that it's been submitted and that you are done. So that is the new process, again, all in one. We will likely do another training. Again, we know that when something changes from one portal or one process to another, sometimes that's necessary. And if you Once we go live with this, if you feel like your institution needs specific training or assistance, then we're happy to provide that. All right, we're getting to the end here. So I wanted to run through some recent notices and some upcoming notices and also some pending deadlines that are approaching. So back in January on the 19th, we sent out the Texas Grant and TEOG award amounts. So those are posted to our website. Please check those out. That also includes the priority EFC amount for the year. So that has been published. The forward guidelines, like I mentioned, were released on February 24th. I just went through the steps, but there is a lot of extra information on this program. So I encourage you to go read that. You can also go to HH Loans. We have a dedicated page to forward. And most importantly, please go read the administrative code related to that program, because those are also very important. Now, some upcoming notifications. We have a updated institutional calendar that we're going to be releasing that will include some dates on there that are related to the webcast and some FADS updates. Authority to transfer, we've had institutions starting to reach out asking if they can transfer money in, either between grants and work study or work study programs. So we will be sending that out along with the form that you can use. That's coming very soon. And TEG award amounts, we should be having that out anytime now. Please have a heads up that there are pending rule changes with TEG. So that is included in the notice, but take a look at it. And if you have questions for us, please reach out. But it is something that is pending board approval at the moment. Deadlines, we have the Texas Transfer Grant, the reimbursement request form. It was actually, the target date was yesterday, but you can still submit that if you haven't already. But please do that, because that will allow us to determine if money can be reallocated to other institutions. Our opt-in, opt-out form, this is specifically for educational aid exemption, Texas College Work Study and Work Study Student Mentorship Program. The deadline is Friday, so please make sure you submit that. This does require that you send it through if you want to participate. Otherwise, you'll be excluded from the allocation calculation process. So if you're not sure, you can always reach out to us, but you should have received a confirmation if you did that online. If you're not sure that you ever got anything, the opt-in, opt-out memo is on our website, which includes the form. So you'll just go to that webpage and you can read what the steps are. Good Neighbor program is quickly approaching a lot of institutions. This is through the international office. I looked yesterday, we have very few applications. We usually get anywhere from 400 to 500. We have approximately 20. So this is something that a lot of schools do wait till the very last week to do, but please reach out to your international office if you do participate to make sure that they're on track, because we don't accept late submissions. TEG engagement report for FY 2022 is April 15th, which is coming up. If you have not submitted that, you'll want to send that to the coordinating board. The instructions on that program are online. We have a manual that you can follow for that engagement. I think this is the end, so let's see what we got here. I know it's short on time. I always go through our contact information, especially if you're new, you may not be familiar on how to get in touch with us. For students and families, we have the borrower services number, which is if they are applying for Cal, TASP, or Forward Loan. We also have our TFAC line, which is our Texas Financial Aid Information Center. That's for public inquiries. And then our dedicated institutional line, that's the one that y'all would call, is our 844-792-2640. That is supposed to be strictly for institutions. So please don't post this on any of your websites. We do know that students find it, but we really do want to dedicate it just to schools so that y'all can talk to somebody. We're open 8 to 5 every day. We're closed though from 12 to 1 p.m. And if you can't reach us by phone, or you want to send something in writing, that's when you would use our contact us form. That's honestly the best way, even though it can take a little bit longer. Ultimately, you'll get something in writing. It allows us to research your question as well. So when you pull up the contact us box, it's a registration form that you have to fill out. Make sure you put that you're an institution so that it gets routed to our area. Make sure that you type in the school you're from, because our team is broken up a lot of times by institution type. Most important, put financial aid question, even if it's related to a loan or anything that is related to financial aid processing. That's how it makes it to our area. Description is also very important. The more details, the better, excluding PII. We don't want student level information outside of, like their common line ID. You can put in their date of birth, but putting full socials is not a good idea. So please limit PII information in there, but you can put details on what you're requesting. Make sure that you put your direct line. I don't know, as many details as you put, there's still usually a conversation that we have to have. So it's helpful to be able to call you directly. Once you send that through to us, then we'll review it. It gets routed to our team, and then we will respond to you or give you a call. That is it. I spoke so fast on this call. I think that was the fastest ever. Let me see how many minutes. I didn't even look at the clock because I didn't want to be distracted by how many minutes I have left. Let me circle over here to see in the chat or anywhere here. I'll just ask Deshay. Deshay, are there any questions that, okay, we've got lots of thumbs up. So just to confirm, Deshay, do you want me to try and read some of these ones that have the thumbs up so that it's recorded in the video? Because I know we're limited on time. If you can just type that, that's fine. Let's see. Wow, this Q&A thing is fancy. Hang on. All right. I see a bunch of questions in here. I don't see thumbs up yet, so I'm just going to kind of work down the list. Where can we find the memorandums on the new website? Was trying to find the reference from January 19th. The new website, even though it looks different, it's organized the same way. But since I have y'all, I can just quickly pull up a new browser here and show you on our new website. Sorry, my browser here. It's our standard browser. Okay. Sorry, it's loading. So this is our Student Financial Aid Programs website. So you go from the home screen, our work, supporting our institutions, SFAP. When you scroll down, we have a latest news section, and then you'll go to Stay Connected. Once you're under Stay Connected, because this was in January, you'll have to scroll down to our archived memos, and that's where you'll find down here at the bottom, you'll find the Texas Grant and TEOG award amounts. Sorry, that was a very long explanation, but y'all got a free demo. Is selective service required for forward loan? The answer is yes. Will the new portal have a history of previous years submitted FAD reports and certifications? I believe the answer is no. There's a lot of questions in here. I won't be able to review all of these on this call. I see lots of them. So we'll circle back with Deshay once this webcast ends. And what we will do is we will document these and we will send them out when we notify y'all that the training is available online. We do record this, so we post this online under the Stay Connected page. There is a archived webcast. If you go under Webcast archive here, and we will be posting this presentation along with a PDF version and then the question and answers on here. It's just slow. So here is the last one we did, so you'll see the new one at the top. It does take approximately a week, if not a week and a half, to post this, so please be patient. But we will get this out in case you want to watch it again or if you want to share it with colleagues. We are out of time. So again, thank you so much for joining me. I hope y'all learned a lot of good information. Much more to come. I know that an hour is never enough to go through everything thoroughly. We will be focusing on additional training, dedicated training to specific topics this year. So keep an eye out for that. And in the meantime, reach out if you need our support. But thank you very much, everyone, and have a great week.